I'm working on this John Deere 110 garden tractor. This is part 10 of a multi-part series. In the last video, I adjusted the inside belt guide and I rebuilt the carburetor. Now I'm going to keep putting the engine together. When I took this tractor apart, this cover was missing. This is the one I showed in a previous video. I'm going to put it back where I got it with the other red parts I have, and I'll use this yellow one because I don't have many other yellow parts. Here it is after sandblasting, and this is the primer coat. Here it is after the primer's dry, and this is the finish coat. This is the next pile of parts to go on the engine. I have a bunch of bolts and washers, and there's some dirt on these parts, but I didn't think it was worth scraping them. I'm going to clean the smallest parts first and work up from there. Now I'm going to put this cover on. I have the 3 original bolts here. Well, I have this cable in the wrong place. That's supposed to be behind that backing plate. I thought I had that done already. I should mention the 2 bolts towards the bottom of the cover are shorter, because the longer bolt would go in too far and touch the flywheel. Out of the 3 bolts I have here, the longer one goes towards the top, and the shorter ones go towards the bottom, because that part's closer to the flywheel. I saved the longer bolt for last because this choke cable bracket goes under this bolt, and I need to straighten out the bracket first. For now I'm going to put the bolt in the hole while I tighten the bottom bolt. That'll help make sure the holes are lined up. This back part of the bracket is bent. I'm going to straighten that up. I could just hammer that flat. I think I'll squash it first. That gets it closer, but you still have to finish it with the hammer. I can't put the choke bracket on yet, because that bolt also holds that cover that I painted, and the paint's not dry yet. So I'm going to put on the belt pulley. First, make sure the flywheel's not rubbing on the starter housing. There's a ledge on the back of the pulley. It fits down in the notches of the flywheel. So you want to feel that fit in there good. This grass screen is held in with the same screws, so it needs to be in place. That last screw tightens up before it clamps on the pulley, so I have to clean out those threads with a tap. I'll put a rag in here so I don't get dirt on stuff. These screws look like they're in good shape. I'll try 2 different ones in the hole. That feels okay. Good thing I didn't drop that in the flywheel housing. I should have had that rag in place for that. Got lucky there. Okay, now it should work. I want to make sure the pulley's not rubbing on the housing. That sounds okay. It's been a few days since I painted this cover, so I'm ready to put it on. This choke bracket goes on the same bolt. This supper bolt was missing on this tractor, so I'm going to put in a new one. This choke bracket will probably need to be adjusted later. For now, I'm going to make it square with the engine. This slotted head screw's not original. I'll change it to match the other side. Next, I'm going to put on this starter generator. When I was taking that tractor apart, I put the hardware back in place. That way I know how it was, and I'm less likely to end up with extra nuts and bolts. To clean the outside of this, I'm going to use as little solvent as I can to minimize how much might get inside. It feels normal when I rotate it. Looking at the bottom, there's some damage here. It's been running with the bolt loose for so long, the pad's completely worn off of this end. The first thing you see on this end is the egg-shaped hole caused by this bolt flopping around in there. Looking at the bottom, there's a big wear mark from it riding on the bracket. Looking at the bracket, there's a big wear mark that matches. Each end of this part might have some wear too. The way I'm planning on fixing this problem will include taking the starter generator apart, and I think I'll do that in a separate video. So for now I'm going to switch to the other side of the engine and put on the carburetor. This carburetor was rebuilt in a previous video, so it's ready to go. The original gasket's still stuck to the block, and it looks like it's in good shape, so I'm going to leave that on there. You need to connect the linkage before bolting the carb in place. If you're using the original slotted head bolts, you can use a little screwdriver to start them in. I put the first one in too far, so I have to loosen it to get the second one in. Once you get them both started, then you can alternate tightening each one 3 or 4 turns until they both get in. Now I'm going to put the throttle cable on. I like to have the throttle at the idle position. That'll move the wire out as far as it goes. I want to make sure the cable's not bottoming out here at full throttle. The throttle lever on the dash should hit a stop before this cable bottoms out, so that's good. Now I'm going to adjust the governor. That sets the timing between the governor arm and the shaft. I use 2 wrenches. Loosen the bolt so the arm rotates freely on the shaft. I hold the upper wrench like this so I can push down with my finger and force the arm counterclockwise to the full throttle position. Now with some pliers, grip the shaft and rotate it counterclockwise until you feel where it stops, which is also the full throttle position. If you keep downward pressure on the bolt with your finger, that keeps the shaft in position so you can tighten the bolt. Now the governor arm and shaft are locked together when they're both at the full throttle position, and that's where it needs to be. I should be able to move this shaft in and out, and the arm should not touch the bushing. Make sure the spring is in the slot behind the arm. Now when I move the throttle to the idle position, the carburetor's not in the idle position. The arm needs to move farther clockwise, which means the cable has to push farther upward. I'm going to loosen this clamp. These clamps are made to grip in the grooves of the cable, so it's not going to slide. You have to rotate it so it moves on the cable. I'll move it down on the cable. That'll mount the cable higher. Now with the throttle in the idle position, this cable will be able to push the arm up a little bit farther. And that's where I want it. I should be able to flop that lever back and forth, and the carburetor arm should be hitting the idle speed screw. I should be able to bottom out the throttle lever at the dashboard before this wire bottoms out on the outer jacket. That's pretty close. Just make sure it's not hitting. And back to the idle position, I should be able to flop the arm a little bit. The throttle lever should not be able to force the carburetor arm against the idle screw. That's the governor's job. It'll push the carburetor arm to the idle position when the engine's running. Now for the choke cable. It has one of those clips that grips the outer jacket, so I'll have to screw the clip on there. Make sure the choke lever on the dash is in the open or run position. And I'm going to position the clamp on the outer jacket so the cable holds the choke in the open position. Make sure it works with the choke lever. And make sure the choke opens all the way when you're done. Well, that's as far as I'm going this time, and here's what it looks like. The carburetor's on it. The governor's connected and adjusted. The throttle and choke levers are adjusted. And all the sheet metal covers are installed. Next time, I'll take a look at that starter generator. Alright, that's it.